So this is the story of Minapa, the Bengali Jonah, it's called. And we'll begin with his gatha, his poem. I'm called Minapa, the stubborn fisherman. When plunged into the vast sea of my destiny, I survived in the belly of the holy Leviathan. By practicing a yoga meant for Umadeva alone. After this, even solid rock could not bear the weight of my excellence. So Minapa the fisherman, he spent his life in a little craft out on the Bay of Bengal. Day after day, he would bait his hooks with morsels of meat, cast out his lines of homespun cotton, and wait for the tug that meant that he'd connected with a creature from the depths. One bright, calm day, Minapa was playing his trade as usual, waiting patiently for a bite. Suddenly there came a pull on his fishing line, such an enormous strength that the poor little fisherman was yanked headlong into the sea. Splash! Minapa had hooked the most gigantic sea creature he had ever seen in his life. And once the Leviathan had seen the fisherman, Minapa became the bait on his own hook. The creature swallowed him whole. Gulp. But so beneficent was his karma, and so remarkable his luck, that the fisherman survived to set up a house inside the belly of the great fish. Meanwhile, in the more celestial realms, Umadeva, the divine consort of Siva Mahadeva, had taken it into her mind to learn her spouse's purest and most secret yogic practices. Night and day, she pleaded and begged and insisted until Mahadeva knew he would have no peace until he instructed his consort in his dharma. Yet until now, his practices had only been for himself. He was uneasy about imparting these teachings of such great power, lest they fall upon the wrong ears. Therefore, he imposed one stricture. He would instruct Umadevi as she had requested, but he would only do so in the uttermost depths of the sea, the bottom of the ocean. Umadevi was delighted. She immediately set about constructing an underwater hermitage of the most exquisite sacred shells, all hung about with pearls and precious corals. It was set within a garden of rare and delicate sea grasses and flowers. And she invited all manner of brightly colored fish to come and share in her retreat under the sea. When Mahadeva saw it, he pronounced it suitable and immediately began his discourse, the teachings of the Dharma. But back to Minapa and that Leviathan who had swallowed him whole. Drawn by the amazing number of beautiful and delicious fish, this leviathan also took up residence in the neighborhood nearby, deep in the sea. And the deep and ringing tones of Mahadeva's precious words passed easily through the shell walls of the retreat dwelling and through the flesh walls of the great Leviathan. Unknown to Mahadeva, he acquired a very faithful student, Minapa, inside the belly of the great Leviathan. Unfortunately, the same could not be said for Umadevi herself. Once she had gotten her way, the gentle movements of the undersea currents and the hypnotic waving of the long sea grasses, back and forth, made her so drowsy and sleepy. Before long, the gentle waves back and forth put her to sleep. When Mahadeva asked her if she was listening, it was actually Minapa who replied from the belly of the Leviathan, Of course I'm listening." When Mahadeva reached the end of his instruction, his teachings of the Dharma, the silence woke Umadevi. And to cover her nap, she said, "This is fascinating, my lord. Please continue." Mahadeva said, "I just this moment informed you that I had finished." And Umadevi said, "Perhaps I just dozed off for a moment or two." "Then who answered, 'Of course,' when I asked if you were paying attention?" Mahadeva said. "I did," came a small voice from out of the deep sea. And with his magical gift for seeing through all things, Mahadeva spied Minapa in the belly of the great big Leviathan. "Ah," he cried, "now I see who my true student is. It is to the fish dweller that I will give initiation, and not to you, Umadevi, my dear." Whereupon Minapa took the vow without ever leaving the belly of the great Leviathan. And he began a 12-year practice. In the belly of the fish, the giant Leviathan. At the end of this 12-year period, just practicing deeply and intently in the belly of this fish where he made a little hut, the Leviathan fell prey to the nets of an enterprising fisherman. Certain that the heaviness of this Leviathan meant that it had somehow swallowed enormous amounts of treasure, silver and gold, the fisherman hacked it open with great effort to try to get into what must be diamonds and treasures that this Leviathan swallowed up through its life. But the treasure that came out was Minapa. The poor fisherman was frightened out of his wits to see a person coming out alive from the Leviathan's belly. "Who are you?" he cried, as a crowd gathered around the fisherman and the Leviathan. Minapa told the tale of his capture and his initiation into the teachings of the Dharma. And when he told them the name of the king in whose reign he had last seen the light of day, the people around him were astonished because they knew that he must have lived for 12 years in that belly of a fish, because that king was over 12 years old, 12 years ago. And so the people gave him the name Minapa, which means the fish Siddha. And they bowed and prostrated themselves at his feet. They gave him offerings, and a great feast was held right there on the beach where Minapa had emerged from the sea. And as though they had the mind of their own, just organically, naturally, Manapa's feet began to dance in an outburst of joy. You just picture Minapa coming out, 12 years of practice, looking deeply into his mind, coming out of that sea on the beach with people, and just spontaneously dancing in the warm sand and the cool waves. Wherever his feet touched the rocky shore, they sank into the stone as though it was warm butter. And to this very day, you can still see the footprints of Minapa embedded in solid rock. As he danced, Minapa sang a song to all the people on the beach. The lyrics of that song: "The source of my magic is twofold. It arises from the good fortune that accrued, from the virtue of my past lives, and also from my steady devotion to the great teachings I have heard. Ah, my friends, what a precious jewel is one's own mind." Progressing along the path, Minapa worked selflessly for others. For 500 years, he worked for the benefit of all beings. In time, he came to be called Vajrapada, and he increased his magical powers manyfold. And at last, when all his work was done, he arose into the paradise of the Dakinis. So that's the story of Minapa, who lived in the belly of a Leviathan for 12 years. He listened to the teachings diligently with devotion. He listened wholeheartedly. And then most importantly, put it into practice. He practiced in that belly of a fish, looking into his mind, purifying his obscurations. And then, for a long, long, long time, he worked to be a benefit to others, putting others before himself. He's one of the great masters of the lineage. And when we connect with the lineage, when we receive the blessings of the lineage, we receive his blessings. We can touch the energy that he had, to listen deeply to the teachings, to put them into practice, and to be a benefit of others.